Your literary happy hour.
Fun show.
I want you to find the next author you're going to love.
On a more serious note.
Welcome to the Whiskey Bar.
Bring my hands up like, you know what the...
Whatever happens, probably will.
So what are we drinking? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writers Drinking Whiskey, your literary happy hour. I'm your host, William R. Hincy, and joining me today is Janice Hardy. Janice, welcome to the Whiskey Bar.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so give you the brief introduction here. So Janice is an award-winning writer. You have the teen fantasy trilogy, The Healing Wars. You also write the Grace Harper series. That's for adults, and that's under J.T. Hardy. And then you run the popular writing site Fiction University. Anything I missed? Anything you want to add?
Oh, it's tough. There's so much. I do way too many things. I get distracted easily by things, and there's a lot of things I like to do. So I like to write books for writers. I like to write books for readers. I like to switch genres. I like to do all the things they tell you don't do if you want a successful career.
Right. That's my, I remember a story. I went to this, through this phase where I was obsessed with hawks and like raptors and, eagles, these things. And I had this really misguided notion that I wanted to be a falconer for about like a month. Like I did realize pretty quick this was not going to work for me. But I remember reading a book from a falconer, and it said, okay, 1 falcon, happy wife, 2 falcons, no wife. And it was one of those like, yeah, you can have all these things, but you get too much, then your relationships are suffering.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, back when I was a kid and growing up, I always wanted to be an archaeologist.
Oh, very good.
The dinosaurs and the bones, and
sure.
my sister used to say, listening to a 5-year-old say, Brachiosaurus was like the cutest thing ever because I knew all the dinosaur names.
Right.
That was funny.
Yeah.
I decided that wasn't going to work out. There's not a lot of jobs out there for archaeologists.
I know, sure. You have to be like Indiana Jones, and then it works out. You make movies on yourself.
So excited when that movie came out because it was like, yes, it's an archaeologist.
I know, and they're so cool.
They are.
So, where in the world are you? You can be geographically, maybe metaphysically, whatever you like.
Yes. Well, I am in a little town called Sorrento. I am just about an hour outside of Orlando, Florida.
Oh, okay.
I can go from my driveway to a parking space in the Magic Kingdom in 58 minutes. I've timed it.
Oh, really? Very good.
That's how close I am to Disney World.
Okay. So if we're visiting Orlando, what is the thing you have, maybe not the touristy thing, maybe not the Disney World, what is something that you have to do, and where's somewhere you stop and get a drink?
Oh, stop and get a drink. That is tough to answer because I don't go out drinking a lot. Well, I'll give you one place that is fantastic. It's not necessarily in Orlando. It's outside of Orlando. There's a lot of suburbs, but there's a town outside called DeLand. And there's a Mexican restaurant there called De La Vega that has the best and most interesting Mexican food ever. And I know that some of their, I see the margaritas, I see the drinks that they pull out, and they look just as fantastic as the food. So I think that would be a place to go because I know the food is great, and I'm sure you can get fantastic drinks there.
Right.
But almost anywhere in Orlando, you're going to find lots of places. I think there's like a little Irish pub right in the downtown area near the library. Because frequently I hear the writers, when I just did a writers conference there this past Saturday, and the writers always talk about the Irish pub. So I think there's one down
there. Right. Yeah, writers love their Irish pubs, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So awesome. So to the most, like, in my very favorite part of the show, what are we drinking today?
I am drinking, okay, this is a very, very complicated recipe. So
okay.
You need to get your glass. And you need to put your ice in the glass. Spill it out half of it on your desk. That's okay. Then you pour out my honey bourbon.
Okay.
Now I do about 2 fingers. Unless I've had a really, really bad day, then I might do more than that. If everybody's taking notes at home, because like I said, this is a very complicated recipe. And then I add my water. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Very
And that is
good.
it. It's not fancy, but it's yummy. And I just discovered, I used to do like the Long Island iced teas and the fancy drinks and the tequila sunrise and the mixed things. And then I just somehow we found the honey bourbon. I got the honey bourbon, the caramel whiskeys, like just the flavored
Sure.
whiskeys and bourbons, and they just smooth them out and they're just nice and mellow. And they just make it's like a hot toddy or something. They just make you feel warm all over.
There you go. And I'm going to do one simpler. And I'm actually super excited about this because this will be the first time on this show I'm doing a recommendation from one of the guests. So Dan Conover was on the show. I think he's going to be the May 2023 episode. And he had said his wife loves the Sexton Irish whiskey. We're talking about Irish pubs. Now we get the Irish whiskey. And it has the fancy, if I can hold it up, kind of skull guy on the top there. And so I'm just going to do some of the Sexton, and it's going to be on the rock, which I had this glass. If you can see, actually, I showed this on there. So it actually has that little mold.
Oh, cool.
And so mold comes out.
It's this half one. Yeah, I couldn't see that from the other angle.
Yeah, so it just
Very
kind of goes
cool.
right there. So you get a nice little chunk, and I don't know that it tastes better, but it tastes better. It feels good to drink out of the rock there.
It might, because if the ice is solid and you pour the stuff in, it like ice, when it gets chipped and everything, it melts faster, which waters down the drink.
Sure.
Which I learned somewhere, because they were saying that James Bond always orders it shaken, not stirred, and when you shake a martini, it waters down the martini. So it's like he's drinking a weak martini, which I actually thought was smart for a spy, because
that's true.
He could be drinking, but he's actually drinking something watered down, so he doesn't lose, his faculty or anything. So it might be that if the ice isn't broken up, it may keep your drink more saturated or something.
I'm buying it completely. And then that is the it's the wrong angle. There we go. The finish. Cheers.
Oh, and it looks so pretty in the glass.
Yeah, they're really fun. My wife got it for me for I think it was just because, actually I was gonna say Christmas, but I think it was months before. But yeah, and it's fun. It's something fun to show on the show, which is what's most important in life, So we got where you are, we got our drinks. One of my favorite questions to start people off with is, what is something that really pisses you off? Right? Pet peeve. It can be small, big, like small, big. wherever you like to start.
All right. So for a big thing, I'll do one big and one little. How's that? For the big thing, it's people being mean in general, and other people. It's hypocrisy, it's willful for ignorance, it's just outright rudeness and lack of consideration that always makes my blood boil. But the little thing that probably makes me crazy are when I go to a restaurant and they're closed at weird times when you don't expect them to be closed. Like in this area down in Mount Dora, for some reason, like you would expect restaurants to be open like on a Saturday or like they close at weird times, and you show up and like you expect, and they're not open. Drives me crazy. Now, they have every right to close whatever they want. I'm not saying it's rational. I know I'm in the wrong here, but yeah, it makes me nuts, because like you go and then you have to find where you're going to eat next, and it's this whole thing. So that's a little just pisses me off.
It makes you wonder like what the story is. Like we had this Thai food place that's still right behind us, and we got really into it. It's really a tiny hole in the wall place. There's like one behind us, the Taco Grill, which is delicious. A little hole in like just very small restaurant.
They're always the best. Little hole in the wall.
Right. And the Thai place we loved, but it started to like just really strange hours, and not like even the hours they like advertised. I'm like, is this place a front? Like, how do they stay in business this way? Like, there's like some like Thai money laundering or something going on here. Like, I shouldn't say that on camera. I'm gonna be a hit out on me now. But I just won't say the name because I don't remember it anyways. But so that's funny. That's people being inconsiderate and like not caring for others. That's probably, I've had like 5 or 6 different authors say that now, And I think it's like we're finding like a very common writer thing. It's like you just want people to be kind and like considerate to each other. Maybe it's just a human thing. So I talk a lot to writers. I don't know.
It should be. Well, writers, you have to have a certain amount of empathy in order to write because you have to get inside the heads of characters. And I think it's funny that as writers, we get very upset about people being rude and being mean because that's kind of what we do on a regular basis is, whatever doesn't kill our characters makes them more interesting. Like we heap as much trouble and do as many terrible things to our characters as we can. I mean, we create horrible people on a regular basis for our antagonists. So it is kind of funny. Maybe that's why we feel so sensitive about it because like, we do it and we go, you don't have to be this way.
Right, sure.
What happens when you're like this? Bad things happen to you.
I know. I've seen entire worlds end because of this. You don't know.
Exactly. So that is funny. You've had a lot of writers say that. That's interesting.
Right. Do you have any irrational fears?
I'm sure I do. My goodness. Let's see. Irrational fears. Well, I'm not a big fan of the dark. And I blame my brother and sister for that because they're considerably older than I am, and they used to, talk about tree monsters. To this day, if the trees scratch against the window, it freaks me out. I love zombies, yet there are times when I'm convinced if I walk into my bedroom or something that there's going to be zombies. Oh, here's an irrational one. If I'm in a bathroom, I have to check behind the shower curtain because I'm convinced there's somebody standing behind the shower. And too many horror movies as kids. I have a lot of irrational fears now that I'm thinking about it. If I look up, like you're brushing your teeth and you sit up in the mirror for just an instant, I'm convinced there's going to be somebody standing behind me. I don't know why. It's not like anything terrible has ever happened to me in my life.
Right.
But yeah, I guess there are a lot of weird little fears.
That's funny. Did you watch Psycho as like a young child? Because that always reminds me of the shower scene there.
Yeah, I don't know. I might have. I know my father never forgave me for forcing him to watch Alien. I was 12 and I really wanted to see it, so he took me to see it, and I loved it. But he's like, he had nightmares for years and years. He's like, you're never going to forgive me for that. So it's a good chance. I used to watch all the Friday the 13th and the Halloween. I was reading Stephen King at 12. Like I was way too young to be reading any of that stuff. So that combined with the brother and sister and the tree monsters and scaring me, then yeah, I think that's probably what did it.
It came out. Yeah, I watched the first Nightmare on Elm Street, which is like comical to watch now.
It was
because it's so like the special effects and everything are so bad. Yeah, but I watched that one. I think it must have been 10, 11, kind of right around there. And there's the scene where the girl's lying in bed and then Freddy's killing her. And she's under the blanket, and they flash from him under the blanket with her, like, with his little claw hand. And then they flash just showing her and like, just being murdered, like with no one there. And that terrified me as a kid to where I used to fold my blanket. So literally only I could fit in there. So I basically made it a sleeping bag. Like, I don't know why that would deter this like spirit that's haunting me in my dreams, but at 11, that seemed to make sense. So I'd always fold it up.
Child logic has that whole thing. Yeah.
Right. And I'm here. So it worked.
It worked. It totally worked. Yeah, we had gone, I guess I was in high school. We went to see it must have been the remake of the Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, sure.
The Dawn of the Dead. And there's a scene where they're at the mortuary and the zombies are running around and like they're hiding up in the attic, and one of the zombies is going, I can smell your brains. And something about the way he said that, just, oh my gosh. Like, and to this day, it's years and decades later, and still every once in a while, I'll like think of that and it gives me a shiver. Just that I can smell your brains. But I love zombies. Like I watched so it seems very weird that it freaked me out as a kid, but I still can't help but watch them.
Right, sure. That's fun. So with all of like your whole list of credits, all the things you're doing, which are like, it's like 4 lifetimes worth of things you already have kind of to your name. What is your superpower? Like, how do you like manage to stay sane and have like a nice clean like bookshelf behind you?
I'm not sure. I love what I do. It's a lot of fun. I think that goes a long way. There's definitely times when I don't juggle at all, and you get that feeling like I ought to be able to do it all, and I have to remind myself. And my husband's really good at reminding me, you don't have to do everything. It's like you work for yourself. If it doesn't get done, it doesn't matter if it doesn't get done today or not. And 9 times out of 10, no, it doesn't. If I need to take an extra week, it's fine.
Well,
So,
when you're your own boss, you're also your own, like, what were they called? Drill sergeant, like something, right? It's like, oh, like you have another boss that can be like, oh, it's okay next week. But when it's you, you're like, it's not okay. I must do this now.
It is. I work way harder and longer hours as my working for myself than I probably ever did. Well, maybe not. I did work in magazine publishing. There's a lot of 14-hour days in that career, but yeah, you work a lot harder. You work on the weekends, you work stuff, you take stuff with you on vacation. But it's writing. Writing is fun.
Sure.
And I think that helps. If I didn't enjoy it so much and I didn't find it being so rewarding, I don't think I'd get any of it
done. Right. Yeah.
But making lists, that's my superpower, making lists, because to-do lists help me stay organized. Otherwise I can't. So I make to-do list of what I need to do, and then I like the act of physically crossing them off. Like I have little spiral pads. See, here's my one. I have my little spiral pad.
There you go.
And I just cross it off, because if I don't like it on the computer, I don't like that stuff, because it's that feeling of scratching it off.
Yeah, I know. It's a feeling of accomplishment when you get to do that, isn't it? Like I tried on the computer for a minute and I just couldn't do it. And the only thing that partially works is Post-its. And so I end up with 1,000 Post-its. The system breaks down very quickly, but it's the only one that like mildly works, because then I still have my little Post-it. And then once I've completed that one, I get to just fold the Post-it up and toss it. I'm like, yeah.
Post-it. Whiteboard sitting here next to me that you can't see here, which is like my weekly calendar. And then I have a big giant whiteboard on my wall across my office that has like my full schedule for the year, and it's all Post-it notes on there. So I am with you on the Post-its.
There we go. We got the Post-its.
And all color coordinated.
Right. Yeah. I'm fairly certain I don't have a superpower, but if I did, I know what it would be. It's just not taking myself too seriously. And I think that's made me like a decent host for this show, because I'm very happy to play the idiot. And like 90% of the time I'm not playing. So I'm just 10% of the time I play the idiot. And the other times it just works out. It just works out that way. Awesome. So we talked about the horror movies and things. I usually like to ask people what haunts them and things. I think we probably covered that. But is there any that's just an oddball question, because I'm an oddball kind of guy. Any conspiracy theories that you believe in, like founded or not? Like it could be JFK to some small, like why they put the freeway there.
I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like there must be something, but there isn't anything off the top of my head that I can think of.
Right. No Bigfoots, aliens.
No,
so I'm 100% on the Sasquatch.
I love the idea that there's something like that. When I was little, I was convinced I saw the skunk ape, because I lived in South Florida down near the Everglades. I'm convinced of that. Who knows what it really was, but I like the idea of those cryptid monsters being out there. I love the idea of Nessie being real.
Oh, for sure.
That would be great. I don't think I make up so many stories in my head all the time that I just don't have time for other stories.
Right. Right. It's like you make up so much fiction, like real life, it just needs to be, what's proven fact, right? So
yeah, I guess so. And I'm doing so much research and the other stuff that if you hear you hear a weird fact, you hear something, and my husband and I do this all the time. We'll be like, gee, I wonder where, like we were driving around one where and we were trying to decide, I don't know even how the subject came up, but it's like, well, what's the difference between like a swamp and a marsh and like a wetland things? And we're like, well, I don't know. I mean, you know what they are, but what is, so he like grabs his phone and looks it up and finds a definition. Like we do stuff like that all the time. So anytime something strange comes up, it's like, well, gee, I wonder when, and then we research it. Like this, what we do for fun. It's just this weird, let's learn something new today kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of the strange things. If it sounds like this weird conspiracy thing, it's like, well, let's check it out. And then you can disprove that stuff pretty quickly. So it's like, oh, okay, well, now we really know what it is, or now we know where it came from, or
Sure. Well, it's funny. I was one of these episodes. I was talking with a writer, Matthew Kaye, and we were both talking about like we love just watching sports now. Neither of us are real big on narrative like TV or movies, and we think it's partially from just you're always writing stories and things, so like you actually kind of want to break from it. So when you're writing fiction all the time, it's like, no, I kind of just want like, let's give me some facts here. Like I have enough make believe going on over here. This is more interesting for the time. So, has there ever been any trips that have changed your life or?
yes, actually there was one trip that absolutely changed my life. When I graduated from college, my parents took me on a Caribbean cruise. And
Awesome.
it was one of those in St. Thomas or St. John. They had one of those little excursions where they take you out, they give you like 15, 20 minutes, teach you how to use the scuba gear, and then basically let you pedal around in 10 feet of water. And I did that and put it all on. And, you know, they have you kneel down in the sand. They took one breath in the regulator and was like, I'm doing this the rest of my life. And came home and got certified. And a couple years later, I was out on the boat. My dive buddy had just moved away. So I was by myself. And then I met this really cute guy who was definitely flirting with me and asked me out about 9 times. And we've been together 31 years now. So if I hadn't gone on that trip, I would not have been exposed to scuba diving. I never would have learned to dive, and I never would have met my husband, who was living on the other coast of Florida and only there because he was with a dive group.
Right.
And that I can't even imagine what my life would be like now if it wasn't for that.
Right. Yeah, that is awesome.
But I guess the cooler thing would be like Alaska, because it was beautiful.
No, I think that's lovely. That's a lovely story. They're like, oh, you go on a trip, you find something that you enjoy, that like even more than joy almost strikes a passion in you, right? Because it's like, oh, I enjoyed scuba diving, you can never do it again. Like, you pretty easily. I do all kinds of stuff I enjoy and you don't do it again. So it kind of strikes a little bit of a passion, and then that leads you to, meeting your husband later. That's lovely.
It did. That was, I mean, boy, that was it. Vacations and every weekend. And I mean, I dove all the time for, I came home, got certified, did multiple certifications, and that was like my big passion, my big hobby for years and years.
Sure. Well, and if your dive buddy doesn't leave, then, you're not, maybe you don't end up meeting your husband. So much serendipity along the story.
So much. That's the story there was take up half of the interview, so we won't talk about that. But yeah, no, it's one of those weird, all these little chains of events that anything, just all these unusual things. It was like the universe conspired. Right. I guess that's my conspiracy theory there. My universe did. But yeah, it was just one of those weird things the way it worked out. But it worked out for the best.
Right. Did you ever have any harrowing experiences or anything like scuba diving, or was it all pretty?
No, it's all safe wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It seems, you see the movies and stuff, and they make scuba diving seem like it's all this scary, frightening thing. And yes, you can die doing it. People do, and all of that. But the accident rate for scuba diving is the same as bowling.
Well, so we shouldn't bowl because that's what I take away from that. Is bowling.
Oh, I know. It's like, wow, I didn't know bowling was so dangerous. But yeah, so it's actually fairly safe. You just trust your equipment. But yeah, no, I haven't had anything scary happen on that. I mean, it's all been really cool and relaxing and fascinating, and it's just wonderful being under the water. I love the ocean and being under the water with all the little critters, and it's just great.
Sure. I used to have a gentleman I worked with that was a scuba instructor, and he used to tell people if they were nervous about things that, like, sharks are actually terrified of your air tank because they've all seen Jaws and they know what the air tank can do. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, now I know the sharks are afraid. So.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you want to find out more, there's going to be a part 2. So come back. You'll get to hear Janice read from her delightful YA novel. That'll be up in 2 weeks. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this after the fact through the miracle of the interweb, you can find the link in the show notes on the YouTubery. And if you're watching on my website, it's all there. There's no part 2. So you feel free to head over there and get the unabridged version of the show. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.